Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, even at home. We provide compassionate, caring support virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here.
I want to talk about something that's been really exciting around here, and that is our partnership with our friends at Ford. Ford Motor Company and your North Texas Ford, or your Texas Ford dealers have announced an expanded sponsorship of the UIL State Championships, solidifying Ford as the official automotive sponsor of the UIL. As part of the new commitment, Ford will now support all UIL extracurricular activities, including athletic, academic, and music state championship competitions. In addition to the sponsorship, Ford is celebrating the 20th anniversary of the prestigious Built Ford Tough Player of the Week Award and Player of the Year Award. This campaign has become one of the most celebrated in Texas high school sports, recognizing standout athletes, student athletes, for their on-field performance, leadership, and commitment to excellence. Ford will honor some of the most decorated players who have received the award over the years, with a special focus being on their achievements both in high school and beyond. Guys like Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, all former Built Ford Tough Players of the Year, and we're partnering with them to amplify that. Dave Campbell's Texas Football, we're going to be amplifying the celebration through our partnership through all of our different platforms, so Texan Live, as well as here on this program and over the course of our social media as well, and TexasFootball.com. We're really, really excited to be partnering with Ford to help celebrate all of the things in Texas high school sports across the landscape. So more to come on that. There's more information on TexasFootball.com, but we're so thrilled to announce that partnership in Texas and the Texas Ford Dealers' expanded partnership as the official automotive sponsor of partner of the UIL State Championships. We certainly are very, very excited about the future there.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. We got your regulars here. I'm your host, Carter Yates. That is senior college writer Mike Craven. We're joined by a guest today. It's Ari Wasserman, a national college football writer at On3. You can catch him on the Andy and Ari show with On3 Sports. Previously was at The Athletic. And Ari, we talked about it before we hit record. You know, we just rebranded this podcast. It's the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast, trying to get some eyeballs out there. So I'm going to start off giving you a question of what's more likely to happen. Texas wins the national championship or Arch wins the Heisman? And whatever you say, we're going to title it the episode. So just be careful here.
Oh, well, you know, I'm actually happy that you guys brought me on, because I'm probably good for one or two lines in the show that'll get me canceled or, me on the broad end of an avalanche from one fan base, and maybe your podcast will be in the mix of that. That's an interesting question, because I kind of feel like those two things go together. I don't know how much you guys have listened to me or read what I've written about Arch Manning, but I'm very high on him. I think that the odds of him not being really, really good are fairly low. I think his floor is very high. And obviously, I think that when you look at the Heisman race and who votes for it, people are very simple-minded in the voting process. Nobody's really, looking through the numbers and really trying to figure out, who the right person is. They just pick quarterback on best team that was, so like, also on top of it, Arch Manning's last name, is going to carry a lot of weight in terms of the hype that's necessary in order to win that award. So like, I actually think that Arch Manning at 8-1 right now is probably as safe of a bet in terms of him being in New York as you could possibly have for any offseason Heisman bet. I think he will probably be in New York. Like, I wish there was just a bet that is, will he be in New York? Because like, that would probably be like even money right now. I think Texas is going to win the national championship. So but I'll always go person wins Heisman over championship because winning it's really, really hard. I think that like actually everything coming together to actually win it is more difficult than having a really great regular season with a bunch of stats to win the award. But like if I'm wrong, it'll likely be because Arch Manning is awesome, which then means he probably will win the award. Like, so I don't know. They're very, very similar things. But if you're a Texas fan, I would be very excited right now. And the last thing I'm going to say is, Andy and I talk about this all the time on our show, but there aren't a lot of people who just like show up in college football and then win a national title without having to work like decades mostly to get there. And I think that banging on the door or knocking on the door for multiple years is usually the prereq that you need before you finally break through. And I think that's what we're seeing from Sark in Texas right now. He built a program that was kind of, middling around and very proud program with a lot of resources and a lot of good players, but they weren't very good for a very long time. And you're like watching the bang on the door process right now. And like, eventually they're going to kick it through. And I think it'd be as soon as this year.
All right, Craven, you heard it. Texas will go to the national championship and Arch Manning will be in New York. Title it. Signed, sealed, delivered.
To that point, like you covered Ohio State for a long time and Ryan Day kind of like went through that same process. Like, what do you think Texas needs to do to go from semifinalist to national champion this year?
That's an interesting question because I also feel like in the scope of college football these days that what programs have to do is every bit as much reliant on what everybody else is. And Texas has been a team that has recruited at a very high level for a very long time. But while they were in the Big 12, they were never quite as deep or as good as the mega teams that you would see in the SEC and Ohio State. And last year, I thought that Texas had a good enough team to win the national title, and they had the unfortunate reality, the same unfortunate reality that Oregon and Notre Dame faced, where they happened to, play the last remaining super team we're ever going to see in the sport. A team that is as deep as Ohio State was in terms of top 10, top elite picks, returning seniors who could have been in the NFL but came back for NIL, and then like all-star freshmen who were already like Jeremiah Smith was the best player in college football as a 17-year-old kid, even before he played. So like Texas like was within a touchdown of 2 yards away from tying it late in the fourth quarter. So like from that standpoint, I know people like want to nitpick their inefficiency in the red zone and, Sark taking his foot off the gas when they're winning in games and all these things. But like, I really do think that Texas has already built a program that is worthy of being considered a national championship contender every single year. And that's the hardest part, right? Like when you think about where Texas was 3 years ago and where they are now, I remember 2 years ago, I put Texas in my top 10 the year they made the playoff for the first time in the preseason and people went berserk. Sark's never won 10 games before. Texas always chokes. They always lose to bad teams. And, we talk about this in the press box too. Texas has legitimately lost to a bad team like every year my entire adult life until the past 2 years. So when you think about all the growth that's happened within the program in terms of talent accumulation, actually developing players, one of the most mind-blowing statistics to me that I like to repeat because I almost fainted when I heard it was that Texas didn't have a first-round draft pick on the offensive side of the football between Bijan Robinson and Vince Young. When you think about how many good players came into that program during that 20-year period, like how is that even possible? Do you have like FCS teams that have more first-round picks on the offensive? Like how? So like there was something off there. I think that has been fixed, and now it's a matter of if they have good enough players to be the most talented team in college football, which I believe they are this year, and whether or not things will break the right way. And eventually, if you keep playing in these playoffs, they will. I think they could win it this year. Like if that's the answer to the question, like I think that they have arrived and everybody else is down. Like that's the thing. They're not going to have to play 2020 Alabama or 21 Georgia. Like those teams don't exist anymore. So like Texas, actually, I think you could say with a straight face has the most good players of anybody in college football right now. Right. Especially now that Ohio State lost their whole team.
Do you think fans have recalibrated in their mind that that's true? That like the team that wins the national championship in 2025 isn't you don't need to be the same team that you needed to be in 2018 to win the national championship.
I don't know. I have had to because like my entire brand as a national personality was Stars Matter and who has the most good players is probably going to win. Like college football was kind of boring in 2018 because there were 5 teams at the beginning of the year that could conceivably win the national championship and there was no exception to that. And then Michigan happened, and I was like, oh, okay, well, things are changing. there were only 3 teams between 2000 and 2023 that won a national championship without signing a top 5 class in the previous 4 years. And the 3 teams were Auburn with Cam Newton, who was the single greatest college football player of all time.
Backpacking those guys.
And the 2 Clemson teams that won with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. All 3 of those teams had generational talents at quarterback. And all 3 of those teams also recruited top 10 classes. So like when you think about what it actually took, they weren't that far behind, even though they're the exception to the rule. Now, I don't think that's true. Like, I think that you could probably sign top 10, top 12 classes and do really well in the portal and win a national championship. So like, I don't know if people have who hasn't recalibrated their brains are SEC fans, because SEC fans still believe that they have the greatest conference in the country and that nobody plays better, deeper football. And that's probably still true because it's going to take some years to cycle out of it. But like from a non-biased perspective, my opinion, like the Big Ten was better than the SEC last year. Maybe it wasn't as deep, but the top heavy teams were in the Big Ten, not the SEC. So I hope that as we continue to move forward, you don't feel like you have to have 17 draft picks playing out of the 22 players to win a national championship anymore, when that was probably the case in 2018. All that being said, too, guys, that the sport is dramatically changing every minute of every day. And who knows, like, what the next round of financial changes will do to roster accumulation. I don't know. I wish I was, like, better at predicting the future, because then I would have been much richer than I turned out to be in my life. But right now, I think that you have to be like last year's Texas team is good enough to win the national title, I think, in today's game. And that was a really good team. It's not like it was a bad team. It was a great team last year.
When you talk about things changing every second of every day, I saw a tweet you had about college football has the worst offseason. You're saying that as a guy who covers college football, and I think a lot of guys would agree with you. At what point, as college football fans, do we run the risk of the offseason really disillusioning people from the sport in general?
Well, I tweeted that because I meant that college football has a terrible offseason from a degenerate gambler perspective, and I was betting on soccer on Saturday because that's all I had. Like, I bet on an over in a soccer game. Like, that's where my life, that's where my life has come to. That's what I meant. But I also do think, like, even if what you thought I meant wasn't what I meant, like, I still think I might agree with that, because college football does have an interesting offseason, or it used to, in the sense of, like, there's 2 ways of looking at it, actually. Like, some people might think it's the best offseason because roster turnover is so rampant. But it might be the worst because it's impossible to keep track of. Like, there's no, like, time window. It happens multiple times, and there are so many players and so many teams switching. It's like, I do this for a living, and I'll be talking on the podcast with Andy, and, like, I'll forget somebody left, or I'll forget someone's on someone's team, because it's impossible to remember everything. So, like, from that standpoint, I think people have probably become fatigued in the sense that, like, well, college football's over. Everybody's teams are going to be completely different next year, and we have no idea where anyone's going. And when they go there, they're probably just going because they're getting paid. Like, I think that'll disenamor people. That is the biggest. I think if you really want to, like, peel back the curtain of, like, why people are upset about NIL and players being compensated, it's not that they don't want people to be fairly compensated for their labor. I think it's because they realize that the connections that the players on the teams have to their universities and the teams that they love so much isn't the same as it used to be. 5 years ago, a player might still be getting paid under the table, but they would choose a school and stick with that school and go to your classrooms and stay in your dorms and drink at your bars and care and grow to love your place the way that you do. And now it's so transactional and so transient and so brief that people don't even have connections to the universities anymore, which I think is what disenamors people. I know that's a long, probably different answer than you were looking for, but I think that college football doesn't have really any free agency period outside of the second portal window. The real free agency actually happens during the playoffs, which is insane. It'd be like if, like, the NBA free agency window opened 2 weeks ago. Like, that would be insane. So, like, from an offseason, and then springs are becoming less and less fun because coaches are closing doors and people are leaving, and it's all dramatic in terms of who's going to be on the I think that their off season is actually pretty much in a struggle bus situation, even though I didn't mean that tweet the way you thought I did. Like, you're probably right. I was right on accident, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, we put together a preview magazine every year. It's coming out obviously in a month or so. We sent it to press yesterday. Like trying to put that together is, I mean, it's a hope and a prayer, right? You send it off and you just hope nothing has happened. I want to talk about Texas A&M because I listen to your podcast a lot. I know you have opinions on kind of the Aggies and like what they are and what they aren't. 11 of the 13 years that they've been in the SEC, they've won between 7 and 9 games. Like how does A&M kind of become what I think we both agree should become with their resources and just the access to talent and all that?
I did say that like A&M is going to be shockingly good one day. I don't know when it's going to happen, but like one day it's got to add up, right? Because like, Mike, you like to play the numbers too, right? Like you're a casino guy, right? How many times can a program throw as much money and resources at something and it not work before it finally does? Like that's the thing that's so crazy to me. We had this debate about A&M in terms of a job, like top 50 jobs in America. Like I had Texas A&M in the top 5 and everybody went berserk. And it's like, how is it not? It's an hour away from Houston. They've got God money. They've got a passionate fan base that's insane about winning. And they'll do everything that they possibly can to field a winner. And whoever has been there has failed to do so. So if you ever won a national title or made a deep playoff run, they'd build you a freaking statue. Like it's the perfect place if like you're a coach who wants to win the national championship, because you go to a place that doesn't have rabid expectation. They do, but it's not like Alabama where if you go 10-2 one year, you're getting fired. Like there's a build-up process. You could go 9-3 and they would be happy with that. There's no happy with 9-3 in Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama. So you have a little bit of a runway that you wouldn't have at another place. And you're so close to players that you can pay. Like, I don't know. Like, for me, if you want to talk about what's A&M going to be this year, I have no idea. Like, that's the weirdest thing about it. Like, they're always, like, kind of a mystery, especially with all the roster turnover that they had when Jimbo left. But, like, on paper, I really am high on A&M as a program. And I know people like to call them weird and make fun of their little, traditions and stuff. I actually think it's charming. I love it. Like, going there is completely different from everywhere else. Everybody loves pageantry and tradition in college football. Nobody in college football illustrates that more consistently than A&M. And their stadium is massive. Like what's not to like? But I think that the fact that they have been so unsuccessful in their pursuit is kind of head scratching. I don't know if there's something rotten beneath the surface that, too many people pulling in different directions or, making outlandish hires that don't make sense because it looks sexy. I don't know what it is, but I actually thought that the Mike Elko hire was functional. They didn't go buy the most expensive person just because they were expensive. They had an incentive-based contract, and he's a good coach. So, like, I would not be surprised if A&M were in the national conversation for, a championship in the next 3 years. I just don't know that it'll be this year. I guess a lot's falling on Marcel Reed's shoulders, and some people think he's a top 5 quarterback in the SEC, and some don't even talk about him, and it's all very fascinating to me.
I think it's a leadership thing.
What'd you say?
I think it's a leadership thing, right? Like when Texas was really good, DeLoss Dodds, the athletic director, all the programs are doing well. DeLoss Dodds goes away and Texas sucks for like 12 or 13 years and most everything. They get Chris Del Conte and like the ships like sailing again. I think for A&M, it's behind the scenes. There's too many people that are trying to control that program and they just can't get aligned. I think alignment is A&M's issue. And as soon as they figure that out, then the ceiling, goes away.
Yeah. And if you spend a lot of money, but you spend it on conflicting things or, you want to do this over here and this over here and those don't jive, then maybe it's dysfunctional, and they've had an athletic director change here in the recent past too. So maybe that'll be the thing that changes it. But like, I do think that A&M has there aren't a lot of places in college football that you can say maybe 20 places out of all of the power of all the entire sport that could conceivably win a national championship or has a national championship ceiling. And I think Texas A&M is one of them, which while also having maybe the worst return on those investments.
Well, you mentioned Marcel Reed's one of the most polarizing quarterbacks in the SEC and quite honestly the country. I mean, Craven wrote a story about it this week about how your opinion of Texas A&M is basically your opinion of Marcel Reed and what you think he's going to turn out to be. So, Ari, what do you think about Marcel Reed?
I thought that he was really good at times last year, and then not great in times other year. But that's also like what you would expect from somebody that young, right? I think that he is much better than he's probably being given credit for because everybody else in the SEC from the quarterback position is pretty loaded. Like, I mean, you're talking like South Carolina has one of the best quarterbacks, young quarterbacks in the country this year. Florida does. Arch Manning exists. You know, you have a change at quarterback at Georgia. Alabama's in a quarterback battle, the most important quarterback battle. Like, there's so much happening in the SEC at the quarterback position around him. It's very easy to understand why he's being forgotten. So I actually think that he might outperform what people are talking about this year. But I also don't know if that'll be enough. Like, I don't know. For them to win as many games as you probably need to feel like you had a successful season, that means that he's going to have to win some pretty important head-to-head battles with other elite level quarterbacks. And that might be a difficult proposition because I don't know that A&M is as deep talent-wise as they've been in the past this coming year. Maybe they are. I don't know. But their defensive line last year was so nasty. They ran the ball really well last year, and they just, A&M'd it off. I don't know if I'm super high on their ability to win 11 or 10 games this year, but I am high on his ability as a quarterback, especially considering the output that we got from him, as young as he was. But like, if you think about A&M this year, I'm going to go pull up their schedule. Sorry. But like A&M is the agent of chaos in college football this year because they play so many teams that have high expectations. And like, if A&M is a 9-win team this year, they're going to get like 5 coaches fired. Like, if you actually think about like A&M is like, they're playing, first of all, going on the road to Notre Dame has no consequence to anyone's job, but it's going to be a great game. But Auburn, Florida, LSU, and South Carolina and Texas, like they play a lot. They could like mess up the entire SEC if they're good. And I think it's possible they are. I don't think they're going to be bad, but I hate to say it, but probably somewhere in the 8-4, 9-3 range again, right? Like that, like, I don't know if I feel like I'm saying anything controversial, but I'm sure their fans are prepared for that too.
It'll be a fun 8-4 though.
Yeah, if they go 8-4, they're going to mess up somebody's life. That's for sure. Like, I mean, I don't know if they lose to Texas, Notre Dame, LSU, and Florida. I guess maybe they wouldn't. But if they go 9-3, someone's getting fired because of them.
Yeah, if they go 9-3, they're in the conversation for a playoff spot. If they beat a couple of those teams. I wanted to, if we agree that Texas is the best job in the state and A&M is the second best job in the state, with everything changing, Texas Tech putting in so much money, SMU is now a Power 4 school. Do you have an opinion on what the third best job is in Texas right now?
You would know better than me, Mike. I think there are so many things to like. And listen, like I watched Landman. Like I know what goes on in this state. Right? That's true, right? Like that's how it works.
Oh, yeah. All of Campbell.
Every single part of it.
Don't you feel like you might want to go to a place that has a billionaire donor that is willing to spend a crap load of money on your team I don't know how committed he is to doing that long term.
Very.
But then at the same time too, like you're far away in Lubbock and you're not like, don't there oil barons that root for TCU? Like the guy in the show literally was a TCU guy, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So I don't know miscast.
And I think it's something that people aren't talking about enough is the company that Double Eagle sold to is an SMU booster. Like the SMU booster, Dave Miller owns the company that bought it for like $2.2 billion. So like, I guess I'm starting to lean towards SMU being the third best job in the state because you have the money like Tech and TCU and Baylor, but you also have Dallas and they've never locked into that. There was always SMU and then Dallas, like it was a separation, but they seem to be getting kids from South Oak Cliff and getting kids from Duncanville. I think SMU is growing into possibly the third best job in the state. But if you were offered a job at Tech, TCU, SMU, and Baylor, I think there's a real conversation of like which one you would want to take now. Whereas for 20 years, it was always TCU or Baylor.
Yeah. I can buy into TCU. I can buy into SMU. I can buy into Baylor. I can buy into Tech. Right. Which is good because that's great for like, I think that's what the conference needs. To have 5 teams or whatever, or 4 teams in a conference, all kind of fighting it out for supremacy. Like wasn't too long ago where Houston felt like a pretty solid option too, considering it's in the most talent dense city in America. There hasn't been a connection. The thing that I think is interesting about those 4 teams that we mentioned, guys, is what needs to happen or which one of those 4 teams is most likely to convince a high school senior who is a top 100 player in the state of Texas to pick them over A&M or the Longhorns. And like, is that even possible? Because it's like, they do a good job and every now and then that happens, but like when SMU shows up on an offer list, is it within the realm of possibility that in 2030 that like Texas is going to have to sweat every time? You know what I mean? Like that is the difference to me, more than who's paying who, and maybe that kind of plays into it, or who's made the most recent run in the playoff. All that stuff is secondary to which team is most likely to appeal to and land elite level Texas high school players, even over some of the SEC schools that are down there. And I think part of the reason why Houston's been kind of in a rock and a hard place is because LSU is there, Ohio State's in Houston, Texas is in Houston, and like it's hard. It's all about branding, and I feel like SMU, they had a great run, and we'll see how it goes. But like, remember, I don't know where you guys are with the expansion of the playoff, if you liked it or didn't like it. It's a very polarizing issue. I was one of the few people that was not crazy about it. But the sales pitch everybody always used to say was, well, now there's more access to the playoff. You'll be able to get more teams in, and then those teams will be able to sell that they went. And it's like, you cover recruiting in the state of Texas. Is SMU a more attractive landing point for top 100 players in Texas now because of last year? Is the answer to that question yes? Because if it is, then build another one, and then all of a sudden you can build something. But like, I also like question whether or not that's true. It might be something that someone says in a recruiting profile because they're 16 and they saw it happen last year. But like, is there going to be a tangible difference in the recruiting results because of that run and because they're paying that we weren't seeing in 2015? That's the number one question to me. Which team can change that the most? And I think SMU probably would be the pick because they strike me as the team that are most likely to do it of those four.
I think SMU, it was getting back into a power conference helps more than just the playoff run. Like, for a long in Dallas, you live there. You're not going to get people to come watch you play Temple or Tulsa or even UTSA. But if you're playing Miami and Florida State and Clemson, I think you have a chance. And we've seen it. Like when Sonny was there, they couldn't recruit high school. Like they just couldn't. That's why they had to rely on the transfer portal so much. I think right now they have a top 10 class. Like I know it's June and it's going to change.
Yeah.
They got a top 10 class right now. They signed an offensive lineman who was a top 30 player in the nation last year from Houston, I believe.
Yeah.
And so I do think SMU, if done correctly and has a competent coach, I think Rhett Lashley is that. If they can keep the billionaires engaged, I think SMU's got a real chance to.
And then also too, if SMU makes the playoff again this year and wins a game in the playoff, and Kevin Jennings is awesome, and then someone calls Rhett Lashley next year for a job, does he take it?
I think it depends on the job.
That's the other thing too. It depends on the job. Okay, let's make it up. Let's just play this game because it's fun. Florida State called him.
I think you'd have to go to Florida. You'd have to at least listen to Florida State.
Okay, so when does SMU become big enough to make that call not worth taking?
I don't think it would be because of money. I don't think it would be because of money. I think SMU can match any money. It just becomes like, I think that they're scared of like Auburn, but like, would you take the Arkansas job over SMU?
I don't know. I think it depends on.
And 10 years ago, it would have been quick Arkansas, right? Like,
I think that's the difference. Gives me pause too that we have to acknowledge about SMU is that the ACC is not going to exist in 7 years, and then what happens then? Like that's the other thing too. Like it's like they fought tooth and nail to get into a power conference as that conference was dying. So like, and maybe the Super League thing will happen, or maybe it won't, and we'll figure it out. Realignment gives me a headache. But like we know definitively that the ACC is like is on death row right now, right? Yeah, so sure. Like in terms of like the long-term build, I don't know that SMU is also in a position of like, we made it into a power conference, our fight is over. It's like they're gonna have to go through this shit again in 6 years. So like I don't know how it's gonna shake out, but for the time being, it's nice. But like also too, we're also on the verge of potentially signing a new playoff agreement that gives 4 automatic qualifiers to the Big Ten and the SEC, and the ACC gets 2, which is you also signing over on paper that you're a second-class citizen again. So, like, I don't know how much they're on the same page as Miami, Florida State, and Clemson, which is great, and it's a massive improvement to where they were 2 years ago. But I still think that SMU has a ways to go before you start throwing that stuff out there. Like, oh, Arkansas. I mean, I don't know. If you go to Arkansas, you probably get paid a ton. You're probably going to get fired in 3 years. Like, it's hard. But, like, would you rather be in the SEC or the ACC? It's not even an SMU Arkansas thing. It's a conference. Like, my question is, would you take the Purdue job or would you take the SMU job? that sounds insane right now because SMU has all these great things and like there's really not much you can say about Purdue, but like they're about to be showered in Big Ten money and maybe that's better. Like I don't know, like what's the best job conversation is so much different now than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah,
no doubt. That is.
Like, I think SMU should be in the conversation. I'm not trying to neg them, but I'm saying I'm trying to say like there are certain things about SMU and TCU and a lot of the things that I just said about SMU also go for the other three, you know, because the Big 12 is a quote unquote power conference, but it's really not, you know?
But that is an interesting question, Ari, because I remember when SMU first went to the ACC, the original agreement was they don't get TV revenue until 9 years down the line. Is the ACC even around 9 years down the line?
I don't know how it could be. How could it be?
So you mentioned there the Big 12 teams also kind of in that ACC lump, but Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU, we think all of them have a chance to make the Big 12 championship game. Is your answer just clearly Texas Tech here on who is the best team to bet on to win the Big 12?
In the state of Texas?
In the state of Texas, yes.
Here's the thing. The Big 12 is insane. It's batshit crazy. Like, nobody knows. Like, I could act like I'm like, oh, yeah, Texas Tech has the most. Like, Texas Tech would be the one I would pick because my mantra in college football is you go with the team that has the most good players. And right now, Tech probably has the most good players, right? Yeah. But like also why no matter who is on what team, every single spread in the Big 12 every weekend is 3.5 for a reason. It's the craziest conference in college football, and teams at the bottom of the league beat the top of the league regularly. Like Oklahoma State's going to come in there and just like go 8-4 this year and like ruin the entire league because that's what they do, right? Every time you leave Oklahoma State left for dead, they're like in the Big 12 conversation in the middle of November, are they not? They're supposed to be last this year. They're going to beat somebody in Texas because that's what they do. So like I would lean on Tech based on personnel, but also too, it's been a while since Tech has been in a situation where they had this many good players. Joey McGuire was building that roster in a way where, you know, they were developing and finding, you know, these players in high school very early on and waiting. And now you just like throw a bunch of players at him like that in theory should make it easier, but it's a departure from his initial plan, isn't it? Yep. So like, how's that going to work? Like there's a lot to, it might work great and they might go 10-2 or 11-1 and make the playoff, but there's some questions there. And isn't like the whole thing with Texas Tech too, like every time they have expectations, they blow it. Like, is that what their fans feel?
I feel like they're always the bridesmaid, right? Like they're not just quite there. I mean, they haven't won a conference championship since 1976. Like Bill Parcells was the defensive coordinator at Tech the last time Tech won a conference championship. And so that's like, a fun fact. I think that they're trying to make the ceiling the floor, right? And like that's going to be hard. And as we talked about before the show, like billionaires don't spend money without a return on investment. And I think that's going to be interesting for Joey. Like the pressure is on in a way that it wasn't ever before. Do you think it's concerning?
What's the return though? Like what do you think for Campbell to feel like he got a return has to happen? Do you think they have to make the playoff or do you think they go 9-3?
I think they have to be in Arlington playing for the Big 12 championship game. And, you know, that's a one-off. And if you lose that game, I don't think Joey gets fired. But like, I think you have to be in Arlington at least playing for a.
Do you think Joey like enters the season on a quasi hot seat, not because he's been terrible, but because the circumstance changed around his job?
I think so.
Yeah, definitely like a lukewarm seat. I mean, I guess the bottom could fall out like Florida State did, and maybe he's on a hot seat and gets fired. I think he would get 2026 regardless, just to try it one more time. But he would be on the hottest seat in Texas if they don't get to the Big 12 championship game this year. Okay. That's what I think. And I think he would agree with that. Like,
but it's also not because he's been terrible. It's because the circumstances around his job that he didn't sign up for changed. Which no is doubt. Like, and how often does that happen?
Yeah, no doubt. Like, I think people look at the Joey tenure as maybe not living up to the hype because he's such a hype machine. But he's the first coach since Mike Leach to like have a winning record in the Big 12 at Tech. Like they are a 500 team in that conference, and they've been better than that with him there. I'm just wondering if it's a concern. You mentioned his like. Originally, the plan was we're Mr. High School. We're going to go get these gyms. We're going to polish them up. We're going to go win games that way. Do you find it concerning that in year 4 they had to kind of abandon that and just go straight transfer portal, or is that just a sign of they have resources now and so you can?
I don't know. Is it because it wasn't working, or is it because they have a new plan and they have a ton of money that they weren't counting on 3 years ago? Like that's the thing. It's like, let me ask you this: if you were Do you guys like cars? Are you car people?
No.
Not really.
I'm a car guy. Okay. But so
We're all football here.
Yeah. I just recently bought an older car that I've wanted my whole life as a classic car. And this is the analogy I'll give you. It's like, okay, I want to buy this car and I'm a good mechanic, right? And I know how to fix things and I know how to do things. So I'm going to go buy a car that has the potential to be really, really pretty and nice, but you know, it needs a lot of work. But this is going to take me 6 years, and I'm going to have to drive Uber in my free time to raise up enough money to get the parts and the pieces and the paint to do it myself. But it's going to be a fun journey, and I'm going to fix it up myself. But then somebody in your neighborhood just happens to love you, and it's like, hey guys, hey dude, like I love that car. I just hit the lottery. I know that you want to work for it and do it yourself, but here's a check for $100,000. Here's all the parts that you need. Like, you just take the money and do it, right? Like, you don't drive Uber anymore. It's not that Uber wasn't working or that you weren't going to get where you wanted to go, but the influx of cash that came out of nowhere gets you there faster. So maybe that's it. Like, I don't know that they're like, oh God, if we keep doing this, we're gonna suck and like it's not working. I think it's, oh wait, we can go get all conference players from other teams and just pluck them and put them on our team. It's a way that Texas Tech can get a talent in a way that they never could before. Why wouldn't they do it? Yep. So I don't know that it's concerning. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think the one area it'd be a little concerning is on that defensive side because they just had to fire the defensive coordinator. And, you know, Craven talked to people around the state for coaching gossip in our magazine. And there was coaches who said, like, look, the personnel was not good last year on that defensive side. They were the second worst defense in the league. But I also see what you're saying of they've never had the resources to get these high caliber players in the transfer portal.
So here's the thing. Remember Calvin Simpson Hunt, that like high end?
It's at Baylor now.
Yeah. So when he was a high school senior and like Tech was obsessed with him, I drove to Waxahachie from Dallas. It's like 45 minutes away. And I sat with him and his mom and his coach at their high school. And we talked about recruiting and I wrote a profile. And I loved what Tech was doing. They identified a freak of nature athlete who was kind of a late bloomer. They got on him early. He bloomed, and they were like the final two in his recruitment, right? And I'm like, if Joey McGuire, who has more tentacles in the state of Texas than anybody, can identify these guys all over the places in places like Waxahachie that are kind of like Dallas but aren't Dallas, and they can pluck these guys and bring them in because they loved on them first and one out, this could work. What happened? Ohio State wasn't in the mix. He gets really, really good, really fast, really big, really strong, really effective. And what happens? Ohio State comes in at the 9th hour. We're Ohio State. I don't know what they offered him or whatever, because NIL was happening at the time, and got him. And it's like, your plan works, but if you're too good at the plan, then you're going to lose, because being too good at it means you're competing against teams that are going to win the battle. And like, my question now is, if Calvin Simpson Hunt were a senior right now and his recruitment were playing out the same way it did 3 or 2 years ago, whenever that was, would Cody Campbell let Texas Tech lose? And if that is different, that is what makes Texas Tech different to me. And I don't know if it is or not. I don't know if it's all portal or if he's backing up the Brinks truck for high school kids. But I trust Joey McGuire and his staff to evaluate and find good players. What I never trusted them to do was to beat out Ohio State for players when they were so right that it was impossible that they could avoid the competition. And that's not because I don't think that they're awesome or that they're good coaches or great people. Like, everybody who's ever met Joey McGuire thinks he's the greatest guy in the world, right? There's only so much a human being can do when Alabama enters the picture, right? Or when Ohio State does. And it's like, if your plan is that, it's a difficult proposition, especially when you're already competing against A&M and Texas for every player in the state.
You mentioned the expanded college playoff. We are definitely on your side of this is watered down the regular season. Do you consider Ohio State like a fraudulent champion, like that they shouldn't have really like qualified for the tournament that they ended up winning?
Did you listen to our show where we talked about this? Because I said
no, was it recent? No, I have a 4-month-old.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I haven't this week. No, I haven't slept.
Okay.
My baby is crying every second of every day.
You're in that phase. Congratulations. It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awful. It's miserable and terrible, but it's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. You're correct. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, everybody always goes, "Oh, having a baby is the greatest thing in the world." It's like, yeah, it's true. It doesn't mean it doesn't suck, though.
Thank you, Ari.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah,
like you're allowed to say it sucks.
Yeah,
it gets better.
It's not fun, but it's awesome.
Is this your first, Mike?
Yes. Yeah.
So just so you know, you're in hell right now, but you're gonna look back in a year and wish you were back here because it gets harder. It doesn't get easier. Because once the kid starts running around, that's the hardest part. You can put a crying baby down in a bassinet, and they can't move. Right. Like I used to be able to go to the bathroom. Like now, because we're at 3, it's like if I walk out of the room for 5 minutes, she's going to light the house on fire, like and hurt herself. So it's completely different. Anyway, what are we talking about? Oh, Ohio State. Fraudulent's not the right word because they played in the system, we had the same rules as everybody else and got in. But like it sucks that they got to, right? Like if you are a person who cares about the regular season and rivalries, don't tell me that the regular season isn't watered down after what just happened.
Yeah.
You can't
that loss to
lose
Michigan
your
would have ruined
rivalry game at the end of the year with a spot in the Big Ten championship game on the line and then go win the national title if you're a regular season person. Now, that's the new system, and that's the way it's going to be forever. But you want to know when it's really going to suck? 1 year, Auburn and Alabama or Ohio State and Michigan or any of the other, heated rivals are going to play each other in the regular season. And at the end of the year, one of those teams is going to lose. Both are going to make the playoff. They're going to play again in the playoff, and the team who lost the first time is going to win the second matchup, making the first one completely and utterly useless and irrelevant. And that's when it's going to collapse. Or that's when it's just like, that's it. We're done with this. Because like we still have to assign worth to the games now because of pride and, bragging rights for a year. But like wait till they play twice in a 3-week period and the first one never even counted. Like then why even play it to begin with? So like that to me is like Ohio State fans, in my opinion, and I get in trouble with Ohio. I have for the last 15 years of my life because I call it like it is. But I guarantee you there are Ohio State fans out there, if not the majority of them, that were this championship, while fun, and you could also make the case maybe one of the most rigorous runs to a title ever because of the 4 teams they had to beat in order to get to it, is still not as pure as the one that they won in 14, where they beat Michigan and, and ran the table after losing to Virginia Tech earlier in the year. I would prefer a system where rivalry games, losing it didn't just hurt because of the bragging rights, but it ruined your season. That was what college football was all about, and it's gone. And I think it sucks. But that's my personal opinion. A lot of people don't care and get mad when I say that, but I wouldn't say fraudulent champion, but like, is it pure? Probably not. We're making it more like the NFL. Is that what we want? Okay, let's make it more like the NFL, where the Cowboys and Giants game is just another game.
Yeah, that's my worry. Is like a 10-1 Alabama faces a 10-1 Auburn, and they rest their starters because they're both in the playoffs, and who cares? And then what I went to a G5 school. I went to UTSA, and when this playoff was getting expanded, it felt like all of my friends were like, "Well, now we have this is built for us. Now we have entry." And it's like, no, this is built for the 9-3, 10-2 Big Ten team, right? Like the team that used to not qualify for the 4 team, but now they can get in, back their way in, and win a championship. And then it happened in year 1. Like in year 1, I think it crushed the illusion that this thing was about.
Yeah, inclusion. I always was very amused by all the small time fans thinking, wow, they finally care about us. No, what they're doing is making sure that Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State don't play an important regular season really ever again. Like you have to be
while pacifying the G5 team. Like,
yes,
we'll give you one spot.
Imagine what the discourse around Ryan Day would have been like if this was the 4-team era after that game. It was already really uncomfortable for him, but he spent the entire summer like going to the Oprah Winfrey show and on Jimmy Fallon and, talking about how awesome life is and being a legend and winning a title. And it's like, if this was 2 years ago, you might have been fired. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm happy for him. He's a good man, and they won the games. They should hoist the trophy. So I would never say the word fraudulent, but I do think that it's different and maybe worse in this system. You get more, and I think that I don't understand the illusion of more. Everybody always says we get more good games. No, we allocate good games to the end of the year. We have the same amount of games that are important. It's just now we push them back to the end of the year, right? Because
we're obsessed with tournaments.
Yeah, we there's more tournament games, but that doesn't mean that the Ohio State Michigan game that used to be a playoff game, you just moved it down. It used to be a playoff game. It was just in November. Now it's not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Texas lost to Georgia twice, and neither one of them mattered.
Right.
Like that's
and also too, do people even care about winning the conference title anymore?
No. Oregon fans aren't happy.
Yeah, or Oregon fans like, yeah, we won the Big Ten. Ha.
No,
like,
I think people have forgotten Oregon already won the Big Ten, and it's only been like 5 months.
Oregon would have liked to not win the Big Ten, so they didn't get the 1 seed and didn't have to play Ohio State.
And also the system is so stupid that like we found a way to manage to punish the winner of the game.
Yeah.
Like it's so, yeah. I love college football. It's my favorite thing in the entire world. And I think part of the beauty of it is its dysfunction. But like when you start like mapping things out in the way that it works, it's really stupid. Like a lot of it is really stupid. And maybe that's great. But no, I do not prefer a system where the regular season games don't matter, especially when the thing that I just have never understood is that when you win the national title, that's supposed to be very hard. It's supposed to be exclusive. Like winning the national title is supposed to be impossible. I don't know why we're relaxing entry into we're making it so teams can be worse to win it. Now, maybe it's better now. I don't know. It certainly was stupid when there were only 5 teams that were good enough to win it. But now if there actually are 20 teams that are good enough to win it, maybe that tournament is the best thing. I don't know.
Well,
but I will miss the regular season. And like all these great games that we get on August 31st, or is it the 30th, one of the first Saturday? It's like we're going to watch Clemson LSU, and that's going to be a very dramatic game. We're going to see Ohio State Texas. The results of those games don't matter, and that sucks. Yeah. They used to matter a lot. They don't matter at all.
It's kind of like in the NFL how all 32 teams want every year to win the Super Bowl. That is the ultimate prize. And you mentioned when it used to be the BCS era, the national championship used to be unattainable. So everyone started prioritizing rivalry games and great regular seasons. And now that they have a playoff and a national championship, every Power 4 school, their ultimate goal is to win a national championship. So they will ease the barrier of entry and make a regular season less important and not schedule hard non-conference games because the only thing that matters is the championship to them. So I think it's like a changing expectation problem.
Yeah, it's also, too, a lot of people have those expectations when they've got no reason to have them either, which is also like a identity crisis. Like there are a lot of teams out there that are like, yeah, we should be like, explain to me why half of the teams in the tournament last year were half the teams that made the CFP last year even like worthy of competing for the trophy at the end of the year.
I mean,
do you think Ohio State was
not in the way that we defined it for 100 years?
Do you think that Ohio State was worthy of competing for a national title last year?
On paper with a $20 million roster, yes, but on the field, no.
I don't think that they did what they should have done or could have done in the system that used to exist to earn the right. Exactly. And sometimes in sports, like, because I think it's like Ohio State was unequivocally the best team in college football last year. I don't think that you can really argue that, but I think there's a difference between best and greatest. And being a champion is sometimes about being great and not being the best. And college basketball and college football for so many years, the best teams don't win. That's not what it's about. It's about which teams come together and become the greatest. Mm-hmm. And like, if you even go back and look through Ohio State's history, their best teams in program history are the ones that never won it. If you go back and look at like the mid 90s and you look at 05, 15, the year that they returned everybody after they won the championship, those were their best teams. None of them won anything. 2019, one of the best teams they've ever had. They lost to Clemson. That's the way the sport goes, because you have to being the best is the easy part. Being the greatest is the hard part. And we now are just rewarding the best.
Before we let you go, you're a gambling man. I'm a gambling man. Yeah. I'm curious if you have some best bets you want to share, some lines that you're seeing out there already that you've already jumped on.
I have jumped on a few, but they're not Texas. I don't know if that matters.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. We can gamble on anything.
The national championship at 20-1 is an insanely great value. because they're going to make the playoff no matter what, and then you're like 2 games away from hedging like a profit. And I actually think Clemson's going to be really, really good this year. I think that they have a really good team.
That's basically Texas. Their quarterback's from Texas, so that counts.
Cade Klubnik, Austin Westlake.
Yeah, I think they're going to be really good. They've got the best defensive line. They've got good receivers. The quarterback is supposed to be a much better version or the best peak version of himself. They play a pretty reasonable schedule outside of that LSU game that what doesn't matter. Like we just got them talking about, they can still win they made the playoff last year and they were terrible for their standard. Like they weren't a very good team last year and they made it. They're going to make it this year. And there's no team in the ACC, I think, that's really quite as good as them. I also cannot understand why Texas is an underdog in the opener against Ohio State. Like, why are they a dog again? Is it because they're on the road?
It's on the road.
Yeah.
It's on the road, and Ohio State beat them last time, and the public doesn't know anything in June.
I took the points. I think that Texas should be a slight favorite. So I think that, the road thing matters. And I know that Ohio State has the 2 best players in college football, one on each side of the ball, but I think Texas has so many good players.
I wouldn't be surprised if that closes as Texas being a favorite or that being a pick 'em. Like by August, I think it reverses itself. Honestly.
I'm an idiot when it comes to math. And I don't know. I understand like how deep the statistics go and the algorithms go to formulate a number, but sometimes I like to play the game in my head of like, what if you were trying to make the spread, what do you think it should be? And I was like, Texas minus 4.5, and then I looked, and they were plus 3.5. I was like, okay, that was auto bet. Like I was like, because like and like listen, if Ohio State wins by 4, that's not like I don't know that I'm going to say that's a lock. I just think that the line is wrong. Yeah. Ohio State's a very good team that's going to be in the national championship conversation again, but Ohio State this year is not Ohio State last year. And I think Texas might be closer to what they were last year than Ohio State was to last year. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. Especially if you think Arch Manning's just going to hit the ground running and be a wash at quarterback or an improvement at quarterback. I think Texas is.
I would be more concerned about it if Ohio State also didn't have a first-time starter.
Right.
Like if they were bringing back Will Howard, I'd be like, okay, like we need to pump the brakes on. But I think the quarterback position is probably a wash because I still think that Julian Sain will be really good too. They've got. I did a. The offseason sucks, as we mentioned, but like we do these posts of like 10 best returning players, and like I think Texas had like 5 that you could have put on the list.
Yeah,
of the top 10 players in college football returning. Like Colin Simmons is an absolute dog. Like just the players like that like the average fan probably doesn't like. If you asked a Arizona State fan like who Texas's best players are, would they even know who Colin Simmons is yet? Or do you have to be paying attention to know who he is?
He had a sack in that semifinal, so they may know him, but they're going to know him pretty soon.
I'm just saying, is Colin Simmons if you asked 100, or if you did a sample size of 1,000 big college football fans, who is Colin Simmons? Like, what percentage do you think people would know who that is?
25%.
Because he's not a quarterback. He's not, I know he was a 5-star recruit, but that's the thing that I think is always interesting. Like Dylan Stewart at South Carolina. How many people know who Dylan Stewart is?
I barely do, and I cover college football. Yeah. Granted in Texas, but like I barely know who Dylan Stewart is right now. Stewart.
Yeah.
Can't say his name right.
I'm trying to find the post of guys that like I had on the list, but like Arch and Colin Simmons, Jeremiah
Anthony
Smith.
Hill.
Ant Hill, obviously, but like I'm talking about the other people like Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, DJ Lagway, Ryan Williams, Dylan Stewart, Peter Woods, Jeremiah Love, Sam Levitt are the other players. Texas has so many good players. And I also like, here's the thing too, like you guys help me with this because you guys, this is like your beat. But like, why is nobody talking about Ryan Wingo? Like, it's an animal. He's going to be awesome this year. No one talked. How many people, I rant, and I'm sorry if we're going too long.
No,
but I like playing hypothetical games. So if you asked those same 1,000 people, then we estimate 25% would know who Colin Simmons is. Would we say like 90% would know who Jeremiah Smith is?
Yeah.
Just because he's an alien and a receiver? Right. Of those 90% people who know who Jeremiah Smith is, how many of those people do you think know who Ryan Wingo is?
15%.
Probably 10 or 20%.
Right?
Do you think that's just because that class was so loaded that like there's only so many wide receivers you can, like Cam Coleman's in that same group?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, 2 of the receivers from his recruiting class are on the NCAA football video game. So
right.
I understand being overshadowed, and frankly speaking, he should be, because those guys are awesome and produced already.
Right.
But like, are we not expecting Ryan Wingo to be one of the best receivers in college football? I am. Is that wrong to think that?
No, I mean, especially if he's got a quarterback who can throw vertically to him. I think that's going to help a lot there. I think another week 1 line that is wrong is Baylor Auburn. Do you have any reads on Baylor right now?
What's the line on that one?
I think Auburn's like 3.5, and it's in Waco.
So here's my problem is, you would know more about Baylor than me, but like, I am semi drinking Auburn Kool-Aid right now, so I might need you to like unspike the drink for me. Like,
yeah, I think Baylor's going to be really good, but the problem is Auburn has the best wide receiver group that Baylor's probably going to see, and Baylor's secondary is their biggest question mark. So it's like a Styles makes fight situation.
But also too, like, is Auburn going to have a good quarterback? My assumption would be that they would, because they got 3 of them to replace the ineptitude that they had last year. But I thought Auburn was a really good team. They were the best bad team in college football last year, and then they improved their biggest weaknesses, and they have an insanely good receiving core. So I think that is a game of like, I'm not going to bet it probably. Like, that's like, because I have a lot of respect for Baylor too, and Aranda had that thing going here at the end of last year. And Sawyer Robertson too is another, like, this is the year of the quarterback. When you think about like all the good quarterback, like last year there were no stars at quarterback, and this year there's like 50. And like,
Sawyer mostly Robertson from Texas.
What's that?
I said they're mostly from Texas.
Yeah.
It's like Mateer, Cade Klubnik, like all those guys. Even, I mean, the quarterback at Auburn's going to be a Texan. Yeah, Lagway.
Nussmeier.
Yeah, Texas is a pretty. Did you write that story? That'd be a.
Story. I'm writing it, so don't take it. I am in the middle of writing it right now.
I tweeted all the good players are from Texas. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It's all right. We are a quarterback factory. We are a quarterback.
Make me want to write about Texas Tech today, though. Like you did make me want to do that. So hopefully you're not writing a Texas Tech story.
No, I've written enough Texas Tech stories. You can have whatever.
But what do you think about the premise though? Because you guys, I get so scared because like I live in a bubble, and sometimes I write things that I think are totally rational, and then people freak out. And maybe that's my charm. But like, isn't it kind of crazy that Joey McGuire's entire circumstances, like, because you said that he is one of the 2 Texas Tech coaches ever to be over 500 in the Big 12 through 3 years? Is that a true stat?
Well, he's just the first one since Leach.
Okay, he's the first big. Yeah, but that, I don't know how long that is. That's like 15 years.
Yeah, about 15 years. Yeah.
And
but
then
some Spike Dykes didn't do it either. I think him and Steve Sloan in the 70s. Like, it's like Leach, Steve Sloan, and Joey McGuire are the only guys that have had 2 winning seasons in their conference.
And we're on the podcast talking about whether or not his seat is lukewarm.
Right. Right. It's completely changed at Tech.
Through no fault of his own. Mm-hmm. I think that's interesting. Okay, well, what were we talking about before I went on that tangent? Oh, all the good quarterbacks. Where does Sawyer Robertson like line up in that world to you? Like, is he completely forgotten, like in a wrong way, or do you think that he's accurately considered as pretty good but not great? Like, what is he to you?
I have been surprised that I've seen so many national podcasts kind of talk about Sawyer Robertson. Like, I've seen you guys list him as a top 10 quarterback, like Cover 3 has, and I was pleasantly surprised with that. We, in the magazine, we do a first team and a second team, like all Texas. And this year is harder than ever to pick the 2 quarterbacks, because it's like, you can't leave off Arch Manning because he may be the number 1 pick in the draft, and you look like an idiot if you leave off like the top pick in the draft off that thing. So the second spot either has to be Sawyer Robertson, Kevin Jennings, Baron Morton, Josh Hoover, right? Like, that's a pretty murderous row. Like, that's a lot of good core. And that's before we get like Connor Wegman or maybe Owen McCown at UTSA.
So you're putting Arch number 1, like, as the first guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Just because the
people
ceiling
get
is
really
so
mad about that.
Oh, I know. But
people in Texas won't get mad about it because we're in Texas. But like, people in other states get mad.
People in College Station and in Lubbock and in Fort Worth will get mad about that because they have quarterbacks that have thrown for 3,000 yards, and we're picking the guy who's only played against Mississippi State. But I think I would rather. I think the ceiling is so high though that like you have to put him on. You can't leave off the guy who could be the top pick in the 2026.
I mean, we haven't talked about this, so let's talk about it for a second. I actually think that Arch Manning's name is negative for him. Like, everybody keeps saying that Arch Manning is only getting credit because of his last name, while dismissing all the context of what we know about him, which is he was the #1 overall player in his recruiting class. He is 6'4", runs like a gazelle, and can throw the ball a mile. Has played enough for Texas to know that he's got a bright future. Like, if his name was like Steve Wasserman, well, maybe not Wasserman. People don't think Jews are good at quarterback either. Like Steve Smith. And
you can change that in Provo.
You can cut that out if you want, but I'm perfectly fine with you keeping it in. If his name was Steve Smith, don't you think that it would be fine to put him #1, or would you think would we not because his name is Steve Smith? I think that people are reluctant to acknowledge how good he's going to be because they're afraid of looking like they're biased because of his name, which then is turns into people shortchanging him because they don't want to appear like they're only giving him credit for his name. Like overcorrection in the opposite direction,
Yep.
In my opinion.
I think some of it is also like people want to see it, and they've seen Josh Hoover throw for almost 4,000 yards. They've seen Sawyer Robinson win 6 of his last 7 games. They've seen Baron Morton. Like, I think some of it with Arch is just like it's a projection, and it's Texas, and people always give Texas the benefit of the doubt, and I think it just is it lends itself into that.
Well, so here's the deal, though. What's the point of talking about football in the offseason? Is it to relitigate the past, or is it try to project the future? Like, if you want to read a list, of the best players in college football from last year, then go to collegefootballstats.com and look at it. But that's not what we're doing. Like, that's the thing that drives me insane when people are like, well, he hasn't proven it or we haven't seen it. I am projecting what I think is going to be the case in 6 months. It's not we're not visiting what happened last year. We all saw it. We know what happened last year. It's what do we think is going to happen this year? And let me ask you this. We got a lot of Texas people listening to this, right? Is there a single Texas Christian fan out there that, if given the opportunity to trade Hoover for Manning, would say no?
If they did, they're lying.
I'm saying in their own bedroom at night, laying on their bed, staring at the ceiling in the comfort of their own home and thoughts.
Yeah.
I know it's a completely different proposition, but I'm saying, like, if you had to actually be honest with yourself, a real, like, mano y mano, looking in the mirror type of moment, you know what you would do.
Yeah.
So, like, let's not, like, we can do the, dude, covering college football is just politics. It's a different topic, but it's the same thing. It's like, if you're a Republican, you think exactly what Republicans think. And if you're a Democrat, it doesn't matter whether it's true or whether or not you believe it. It's just, you are in line with what you're supposed to think. And it drives me insane. It's like, I know he's your favorite player because he's on your favorite team. And I know that you want your favorite player to be good because it's your rooting interest. But the inability to just, like, explain or discuss the actual reality of the situation to people because they're so blinded by what their allegiance is makes it, like, impossible to communicate. Yeah. And it blows my mind. Like, if I were a TCU fan, I think I would be able to be like, yeah, we really like our guy. I think we have a chance to be very, very good with our guy. And that's my hope. That said, am I convinced he's the best? No. Like, why is that so hard for you to do? Like, I've never understood. And why is it so hard to people in politics to be like, well, I voted for Trump and these are my views, but the Democrats have a good point in this specific instance. Like there's no, or vice versa. Like, I'm not like giving it a political opinion. I'm just saying that it's the exact opposite for Democrats. I voted for Kamala, but Trump did something good in this instance. Like, there's none of that. It's just, what do I think? And I have to think this because of what I think. And there's no analysis. There's no thought. And I can't stand that when it leaks into college football.
Yeah. It's tribalism.
Tribalism. And is there two things that are more tribalistic than college football and politics?
No, I know you used to work at a newspaper. I'd had newspaper editors tell me all the time, like, if they could hire a politics writer, they'd pick somebody who's covering college football because it's the exact same thing. Like, if you can cover college football, you can cover politics.
Except the difference is, because that sounds miserable to me. I hate politics. I have no ability whatsoever to pay attention to it. At least in politics, like, it's actually important. You know, like when I'm like writing, like, who do I think Josh Hoover's going to throw for 4,000 yards this year? It's like, if I'm wrong, it's like he through more. Like if you're wrong in politics or you have an opinion, like then you start getting into like real life scary. Like I would die if I were a political reporter because I can like write what I think about college football and be wrong and go to sleep at night. If I was wrong about like immigration, that is like a big deal, you know, like, but yeah, anyway.
Ari, love having you on. Thank you for giving us some time today. We really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for having me on, and hopefully I'll see you guys in some press boxes this fall.
I'm going to need some recommendations in Columbus, Ohio.
Dude, you're going to roll with us. We'll be there. Andy and I are going.
Okay.
I lived there for 10 years. I'll take you to all the spots I used to go on my Tinder dates.
Nice.
Well, that's the night of the Auburn. Auburn. So I want to watch that game. We'll find a good place to watch that game and have a good time. So well, we don't have to do this now, but let me know where you're staying. I don't know that we've booked anything yet, but let's get together when we're out there.
Sounds good, man.
Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast fans, make sure to check out Ari Wasserman at On3 Sports and then the Andy and Ari show on the On3 Podcast Network. Thank y'all for tuning in for the special edition Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. Podcast over.